Welcome to Abundance. You guessed it, a podcast dedicated to all things surrounding dance. I am Kristen.
And I am Hannah, and we are two best friends who are brought together by this art form.
Please join us in 5, 6, 7, 8. Hi, Hannah. How are you today?
Hi, Kristen. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Good. We are excited today to bring to you our 15th episode. You guys have been with us for now 30 weeks because we post bi-weekly. Today we are going to talk about outdoor performances, and this really has become a relevant topic because not only have we seen a lot more outdoor performances because of COVID this year, but also now we are heading into summer, and during the summertime and the spring, we see a lot of outdoor dance festivals, whether it's a COVID year or not.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting topic for us to bring to you. And before we get started, I just forgot to mention to you all that when I was at my residency in New York City, Barishnikov actually came and watched part of our rehearsal, which was kind of surreal and like amazing because there he was. We were in his art center and he just kind of appeared. And we also got to meet his cute little dog Zola. So it was just a little fun fact that I wanted to share before we start.
Yeah, that's so cool. I can't believe that happened. It's amazing.
Yes, it was. And he's a pretty short man. I didn't expect that either.
I've found this year height to be the biggest surprise factor for me because all of my classes have been over Zoom, but I've been gradually meeting people in person, including faculty, just other students. And the first thing we always comment on is height. I just think that's so funny because.
And then faces too, like when you're used to
seeing
masks.
I guess so. But yeah, height, whether it's pictures, videos, all we've ever really seen is their videos of Barishnikov. So I can understand why height would be something like that you'd be shocked by.
Yeah.
In person.
Definitely. It's a good point.
All right. So jumping into our topic for today, we want to first kind of lay the groundwork by talking about some just different things to consider with outdoor performances. So every outdoor performance is kind of set up differently, and we're going to go into talking, like I said, about some different specific performances that take place and maybe how those are run. But in general, something worth considering right off the bat is there going to be a stage or is there not going to be a stage? And Hannah, I was curious, have you performed outdoors before?
Well, we did with Silmar, both of us.
Oh my gosh. I actually completely forgot about that performance. Thank you for jogging my memory, because that actually ties right into this stage versus no stage, because I immediately had performances come to mind where I did perform on an outdoor stage. But I was trying to think of whether I had kind of just like performed in the grass. I mean, recently I participated in a dance film project where we danced in the grass in a park in New York City. And I also did a dance film in the fall where we filmed in Central Park. So there wasn't an actual legitimate stage, but those were also dance films. That's a little bit different than a live performance. But you're so right. We did the Somar Summer Show, and that was in the grass, right? At Frontier Park.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun for different reasons, but also when you're performing on kind of an unstable surface, there's a lot that goes into it. Like, oh, will this piece of choreography even work due to the uneven, right? Yeah, it's just like grass is not really an ideal place to dance, but you make it work for what it is. And so definitely pros and cons about having a stage versus not, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Something that I think gets really tricky with grass specifically is turning. I think that turning can be really hard on the grass. Your feet kind of get stuck, or depending on the weather, the time of day. So like in the mornings, the grass tends to be a bit dewier. So like if the grass is dewy, how that kind of factors in. If it's, I remember actually during that Somar show, I can't remember which piece it was, but there was one piece where I had to do some running. And I just remember like the whole time in my head, I was just like, don't wipe out, don't wipe out. Because the grass just, it was slippery.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And those are just things that you don't necessarily consider when you're rehearsing, but then once you're in the actual environment, it's like, oh wow, this is a big change. How am I going to like roll with it? You have to kind of
Yeah.
make last minute decisions, or do I hold back here? Do I not do as many turns? Because you have to just kind of make it work.
Yeah, it requires a lot of adaptability.
Mhm.
I'm going off of then, so no stage versus stage, which I suppose no stage doesn't have to be grass. It could be something else too. It could be pavement. It could be whatever. But speaking about grass specifically, that kind of ties into my next point that I wanted to bring up, which was allergies. Because when we're outdoors, whether it's springtime, summer, a lot of people deal with seasonal allergies. They might be allergic to pollen or even grass. So if you're allergic to grass and you're performing in grass, that can get a little bit dicey. And I know, so the recent project I was talking about was with my friend, and she actually, when we were there on site, like we were all getting really itchy because we were doing some rolling around the ground, and we were all for the most part wearing like tank tops or short sleeve shirts or shorts. So we were, our skin was becoming directly in contact with the grass. And so we were all just kind of, a little bit itchy because grass is itchy. But she was like, yeah, I'm allergic to grass. And it was kind of like affecting her a little bit more than everyone else. So I think those are things too to consider. Perhaps just, having a discussion with your dancers ahead of time and just making sure that everyone knows what they're getting into, or at least is prepared, if they do have a serious allergy, to maybe bring allergy medication or whatever.
Yeah, like precautionary.
Yeah. Or maybe even take into account then costuming. So okay, are the dancers going to be rolling around the grass, maybe we cover them with more clothing than we would have otherwise to protect their skin.
Yeah, that's a really good point. But then you also have to factor in, is it really hot outside? And are the dancers going to like suffer from just sweating?
Yeah, that is another big one, and that ties into also my next kind of thought of the sun and whether there's an overhead covering or not. So if there's an overhead covering for a stage, that could potentially protect the dancers a little bit more from direct sunlight. But then you also have to think about, well, where's the placement of the stage? Which way is it kind of facing or directed in relationship to where the sun is at that time of day? And being careful of, I was reading this actually, I forget what issue, but somewhat recently in Dance Magazine about sunburn for outdoor performances, right? So you're talking about heat. Sunburn is also another possibility. So making sure dancers are wearing sunscreen if they need to be. I was even thinking of this, it's kind of funny thought, but like I said, depending on where the stage is positioned and how bad the sun is, not that dancers would do this, but like I was just having this image in my mind, like dancers on stage wearing sunglasses. I don't know why. That just like made me chuckle. It was just kind of like a little made up thought. But in reality, unless that's part of the costuming, that's not going to be the case. The dancers are going to be wearing sunglasses while they're performing. But
Yeah, but maybe
it might be needed at times.
yeah, maybe you then work it into the costuming for that reason. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So these are all just little interesting tidbits. Then considering things like the sound system, where and how that's going to be set up. Outdoors, I think it's a lot harder, and I don't really know the technical reason
Component.
or lingo for all of this, but I just think that sound gets drowned out so much more when you're outdoors versus when you're in an enclosed theater. So making sure that your dancers can hear the music loud enough in order to be able to perform and do well, and also that the audience can then hear it too, to be able to, put the two together, see the dance, hear the music. And I'm trying to think back. I feel like that was maybe somewhat of an issue when we did Somar. Was it not? Were we like struggling, I think, maybe to balance out the two between
Yeah, I think for us it might have been too quiet if I can remember, and then maybe for them it was like either perfect or too loud. I can't remember, but it was harder for us because I think the speakers were placed in front of us.
Yeah. That would make sense. And I had a similar experience when I did Project Dance in Pittsburgh. We performed on an outdoor stage, and same kind of thing. The music was really quiet for us. And so it required a lot of extra attention on our end, which, like, I'm not really surprised. Of course, they're going to put the audience before the dancers in terms of, the overall experience. We want the audience to enjoy what they're coming to see, but that does place some extra pressure then on the dancers.
Definitely.
And then the last kind of interesting thing I think worth mentioning that differs from outdoor performance to other shows is whether it's a ticketed performance with seats or whether it's one of those kinds of things where people just kind of walk through at their leisure, if it's maybe a part of a larger overarching festival where there's multiple events going on at once and it's kind of just a come as you go thing. So I think that's
and that
intuition.
well, that reminds me of water dance too. When it was our junior year, our junior year,
sophomore year.
Sophomore year?
Yeah, sophomore year.
Okay. I think that's kind of what you're describing. There was a whole big reason why people were coming to the museum and being there because it was like National Water Dance Day. But we had dancing going on all throughout the facility, like some outside, some inside.
Well, I think what you're speaking on is almost like a hybrid of the two, because I was referring to just like the dancers they're doing their thing. So for example, the Somar Summer Show, we had audience members had to buy tickets ahead of time and they were
I know. Yeah.
And then something like Project Dance that I did in Pittsburgh, that was the type of thing where that was outdoors. People didn't have to buy tickets. People just walked through the square. They decided to stay and watch, or they just passed on by.
Right.
But what you're saying about water dance is interesting because they had the two components. We had not only the audience members walking throughout, but we also had dancers. Remember, we did that large section where we moved up throughout the museum.
Yeah.
So it was the dancers moving, it was then the audience moving and following, and then there was also that section later on that was in the theater.
Yeah, but did they have to buy tickets for that? I can't remember. People? I think it might have been free.
I think it was free. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It seemed, from what I remember, it seemed rather casual. So I think that it was free.
Yeah, but it's all very like cool and unique to, I feel like, the location you're in and also what's available to you, because like with water dance we had a bunch of outdoor space that we could move on, and then there was also little like nooks and crannies within the museum, and then we had the stage too.
Right. And while that all did take place indoors, I think it's just another example of just the different kinds of models of, I guess, how you could run your performance, whether it's outdoors or indoors.
But we were outdoors too, remember, for that one section. It was all of us.
Yeah. But we didn't end up doing it that day because
it was raining or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's cool.
Yeah. With that, Hannah, would you like to start us off on your first site that you researched?
Sure. So Kristen and I both decided to do a little bit of research on a couple of dance outdoor performance venues across the country. And the first that I decided to research was Vail Valley Dance Festival in Colorado. And just a little bit of history, it was established in 1989. It's an annual thing ever since. Performance and educational elements are interwoven in this experience. It's one of the top summer dance locations in the world. And the amphitheater was also made in 1989, when Bolshoi had successful performances. And then from that point on, Vail became a satellite school. And then in 1992, it became even more well known, and it's got its name as an international dance festival. And then in 2006, the foundation hired Damien Woodsell, which was a former principal with New York City Ballet, and then the festival took even newer heights, and it then welcomed various stars across the country and the world, and students as well, to learn and enjoy the performances offered in master classes. Now, due to COVID, things are a little bit different, but not really for this specific location. And this is interesting too, because each location had something a little different. I'll talk about then the other places I researched, but with COVID for Vail, it's 100% capacity without masks or social distancing via the state. So Colorado's saying we will welcome guests with or without masks. Indoors, though, you have to have face coverings. Those are required. And then there are health and safety protocols administered for attendees a week before you're involved in like an indoor masterclass event. But that's all I really had for Vail. So it's kind of interesting because in this scenario, they kind of lifted all restrictions, but with some of the others that I'm going to now talk about, it's very strict.
Yeah, I also found, Hannah, between my research, that each location was a little bit different in how they're handling this all. And I think a lot of it is just dependent on the region. So where, these different festivals or these different outdoor performances are taking place. So I looked into Kotzebue Cultural Park's Spring Festival, which actually already took place for the year. This took place May 20th through the 30th, and it spanned the beautiful 153 acres of the Hudson Valley at Kotzebue Cultural Park. And this was really interesting because it is actually a multidisciplinary festival, which I didn't know until more recently. So not only did it feature dance performances, but it also had music concerts as well as panel discussions with world-renowned culinary artists and poets. So I think that is something that's just really interesting and cool. I was also recently listening to the Dance Edit podcast, which I love that podcast. I do recommend to all of you. And they had interviewed Stella Abrera, the artistic director of Kotzebue Cultural Park, and then this other woman, Sonia, which I forget her exact title there, but the two of them really worked closely together to make this festival possible. And they really have been working towards carrying out the mission of Kotzebue Cultural Park, which the name itself is Cultural Park. So there's an emphasis not only on dance, but on all of these different multidisciplinary arts. So I think that they were really successful in carrying out that mission through this festival. This was, in fact, the very first spring festival that they've ever had, and it continued the celebration and support of local and artistic communities that began with the summer 2020 festival. So during the festival, they had ABT and the Mark Morris Dance Group, as well as artists from Alvin Ailey and Maria Kurowski, Ask LaCour, and Gonzalo Garcia, who were all celebrating their final season with New York City Ballet. They presented signature pieces and newly commissioned works. So it's really quite the lineup of lots of big named artists and companies. This festival was also made available digitally for those who could not attend in person. And I would say that this is definitely a COVID adaptation that has emerged, right? So with all these outdoor performances that existed prior, and even indoor performances, right? There was never a digital opportunity. So that is definitely something that has come out of this all. There were 1,800 audience members that were able to safely attend. This was now speaking back to summer 2020. they had a 9-week span of different festival performances. And I would say, all things considering, that 1,800 people is a lot, because we're talking last summer when things with COVID were a lot worse than they are now. This is pre-vaccine and everything. So I'm very impressed that they were able to successfully do so. They reported no, health incidents, no COVID cases. Of all of the total performances, 17 of them were free with a request of donations, and then 25% of the performance donations were given to arts and social justice organizations. So I know I was kind of bouncing back and forth a little bit between talking about this past spring festival and then last summer's summer 2020 festival. So those are two different things, but at the same time, they both kind of have the same idea behind them, the same kind of approach. So at Kotzbahn, I've actually been there before, and it's absolutely beautiful. They have a really large campus, and so it makes it kind of the perfect place for doing something like an outdoor performance or having an outdoor dance festival or festival with all of the arts. And so something that I was curious about was what they did if the weather wasn't so good, because I know from seeing just pictures on social media and everything that there was no covering for the stage. And so I went on to their Instagram and saw that they actually posted their rain plans there. So they were fortunate enough with their gorgeous facilities it's all together on site, that they were able to plan to move performances indoors. But due to capacity restrictions, so unlike you were saying at Vale, Hannah, where it was, 100% capacity, when they moved things indoors at Kotzbahn, they had to limit capacity. So their restrictions were that premium and general ticket holders were able to receive priority and be in the actual room of the performance, but then the rest of the ticket holders would be able to view via live stream from one of the studios on site. So I think that was probably the best way of handling that all. It becomes difficult because, of course, when everyone buys a ticket, everyone is hoping to see the performance live if that's what they're intending for. So having to watch via live stream from a studio, I know it's not as exciting, but I think that they did their best with what they could to make that all possible.
Yeah, you have to make do with the situation for sure.
Right. And so I am curious in the coming weeks. So like I said, I heard a little bit about this festival via the Dance Edit podcast prior to it occurring. And I went on Kotzbahn's website, found a lot of this information, but I am curious to hear in the coming weeks, perhaps more information about how the festival actually went. Because a lot of this information I got, other than, I guess, the rain plans, was all prior to the event itself.
Yeah, so that would be interesting to just kind of figure out after the fact, like, what did they end up doing? Maybe you'll have to report back to us.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the next venue I had was Fire Island. And for this one, its first performance was in 1995, so it's been around for quite some time now, and it's also annual. But what's so special about this place is the dancers and I would say probably the audience. I don't know exactly how it all works, but it's a charitable event. So, and their biggest thing is they're helping those in need that had HIV/AIDS. And I think recently they've been focusing on COVID-19 relief as well. So it's a really neat event because it's serving the greater good and it's supporting the arts. So it's just a special festival, and it presents, as I think Kotzbahn and Vale, what we were just talking about, it's world-renowned dancing. So emerging choreographers, dancers, works. But unfortunately, this year and last year, they did not hold it due to the pandemic, and they're hoping to have a return in 2022. They're still doing these charitable events via their website. I believe they are trying to still get people involved and to donate to those in need, which is really good and necessary during this time. But unfortunately, they will not have their return until next summer. So,
I am curious with that, Hannah. Did you find anything, or maybe just your own personal opinion on this? Do you think that the reason why they're not having the festival this year is due to financial reasons? Because since it is an outdoor festival, you'd think that safety wouldn't be as much of a kind of question or a risk at this point. But I'm wondering if it's due to finances and making this all possible.
yeah, well, so this website that I found some information on, it's dradance.org. Fire Island Dance Festival looks to 2022 for return. It's just a little article about it. And it says, and I quote, while we had hoped to come together this summer, the challenges of presenting a festival that would feature dynamic lineups of acclaimed dance companies and choreographers proved too monumental to successfully tackle in this still uncertain landscape, said Denise Roberts Herlin, founding director of Dancers Responding to AIDS. We
Okay.
are committed to returning to our breathtaking Fire Island Pines location in 2022 when we can gather together and enjoy the beauty of our full scale festival. So, to me, that sounds like it's just too much of a, I don't want to say burden, but it's a big undertaking, and right now it's just still uncertain and unclear for them to then continue what
Right.
they used to do. I mean, last year for sure, no one was really sure what was going to happen, and some still did what they had been doing, or they changed their plans, like Kotzebue, it sounds like. But with Fire Island, they could not and haven't been able to make that dynamic return yet, unfortunately. But it seems like they do have a bright future ahead of them next year.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that that makes a lot of sense because I suppose now as we're in summer, we can kind of see, I suppose, that, a lot more is feasible, a lot more can happen, but putting together a large festival obviously takes months, if not, I'd say probably a year worth of preparation. So I do understand that looking back, I guess, at that timeline, how much was still uncertain. So yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I just think it depends on the festival.
Yeah.
Each
And like you said, I think that then it'll be a really exciting return in 2022 because I think that because of all we've missed out on, people are even more eager and excited to participate in different events and things as they're reopening.
Definitely, I agree. Should we take a short break?
Yeah, I was just thinking that myself. Okay, so I'm going to discuss a little bit now about Jacob's Pillow Summer Dance Festival, which I want to just throw out there really quickly before diving deeper into this festival. That I actually had the opportunity to perform in the Jacob's Pillow Summer Dance Festival when I was 13.
Ooh,
And this was a really special opportunity for me. I was attending my first ever ballet summer intensive. It was at the Nutmeg Conservatory for the Arts, which is in Torrington, Connecticut. So Connecticut's not terribly far from the Berkshires where Jacob's Pillow is situated. And we were able to perform on their outdoor stage, and it literally was incredible. Like that experience will always be ingrained in my mind. I got to sign actually one of the walls, like in the dressing rooms. It's just such a historic site. And I wish I was older than 13 and that I was actually performing something better than what I was performing at the time. But it's still, that experience was just unforgettable. So I'm very grateful for that.
yeah,
And
that's neat.
yeah, anywho, so the 2021 festival this year will include distance ticketed performances on their outdoor stage, which I just spoke about, then have on-site and online talks, classes, and a new exhibit, community events, and traveling performances, and more. So this will be their first ever multi-platform festival. So as I spoke about before, prior to COVID, we didn't really experience these digital offerings connected with performances, whether they're outdoors or indoors. But with Jacob's Pillow, they are really integrating this into this year's offerings. So the on-site events themselves are being held this year starting June 30th through August 29th, with online events streaming through September 23rd. So I was actually really shocked about that. So they're offering quite a bit for a while. I also want to note that their outdoor performances are not unique to COVID. So I think I maybe kind of said that already at the beginning, but just this once again, the digital editions, that's kind of an adaptation to COVID, but the fact that there are outdoor performances to begin with, that's not the case. They've always been a thing. Tickets have been open for the general public since June 1st, but it's not too late to get your tickets. So by the time you're hearing this episode, the festival will just be beginning, but go check if the tickets aren't all sold out by then. It's worth going to see. They are also very reasonably priced. I took a look at that and very affordable ticket prices. Some of the on-site performers include Ballet Hispanico, Dallas Black Dance Theater, and the Streb Extreme Action Company. Also similar to Kotzebue, but a little bit larger, the Pillow is situated on a 220-acre national landmark. So these both have huge pieces of land, which I think is just really special because, I don't know, I feel like dance isn't always given enough, if that makes sense. So it's very vague, but I feel like the fact that each of these places have such a monumental site, such a large piece of land to take up, I think it's just it's like almost symbolic for the fact that dance can take up space, that we as artists can take up space. I don't know. I'm like making this something more than I think it's meant to symbolize or be. But
well, I think that's a really good point. It's something that I just didn't even think about. So thank you for bringing up that symbolic example, if you will.
sure thing. That's what I'm here for.
Wow.
And then the festival itself is America's longest running international dance festival. So I think that that's something that's really special and really cool about the Pillow. The festival was first established in July 1933. And if you've ever had the opportunity to attend in person, or even you can simply go on Jacob's Pillow, just like I did, to retrieve all this information. And they have wonderful archives, and they're just a whole host of knowledge. So whether you're attending in person or participating online, just going on their website, you really can dive deeper into the history of the Pillow and the history of this festival.
Yeah, and just to now go off of that, since the tickets are so affordable and it is an outdoor performance, go support the arts if you can. I feel like
Yeah.
that's always just like what I say in these episodes, but please, please support the arts.
Yeah, and I actually looked up because I was trying to see if I could actually attend one of their performances. But unfortunately, with kind of the timeline of when things are being offered, I will be home in Connecticut for a little bit in August, but they really weren't offering any performances that I was super interested in to make that trek all the way up to the Berkshires at that time. But of course, there was a company that I would have loved to see perform that is performing like a week after I have to go back to Maryland.
Oh, darn.
It's fine. It's fine. Sometime I'll get back up there.
Yes, someday, someday. Well, my final topic that I did some research on is the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, located in Saratoga Springs, New York. And this has been a site that I have gone to ever since I was a little kid dancing. I started going to my first, actually, maybe it was my second. My first intensive was in Syracuse, but my second one was the Saratoga Summer Dance Intensive. There we go, SSDI. And funny enough, they also have their program at Vail. So they had VVDI, Vail Valley Dance Intensive, and there was like a partnership there. So just funny that I started with the Vail stuff, and now I'm ending with Saratoga. Anyway, though, so during my time that I spent in Saratoga at my intensive, I got to see New York City Ballet perform many nights when I was there, and it was just so wonderful to look forward to. And then we also had master classes from the New York City Ballet dancers. And what's so nice about SPAC is it has been New York City Ballet's home for many, many years now. And while they don't have, I don't think it's as long of a season that they used to do, they still get to perform every year. And it's generally in the July time period when they're there. So I just thought that was really neat, and something that I know and many others look forward to every summer is to then go see New York City Ballet come to their summer home in this beautiful amphitheater. And it's an overall just very magical environment. The audience and the performers are just, just a unique tradition, I think, and especially with New York City Ballet, they're such a well-known company. So many go for just that reason alone. But don't get me wrong, there's many other companies and different arts organizations and groups that will also perform there. I remember I've seen some concerts there as well. So it's just been an amazing place for art to come to life in North America for over 50 years. And it's kind of where art and nature meet. This is what I found on their website. It kind of illuminates each other, and it's a nonprofit organization. It started in February 1962 with Governor Rockefeller, so of New York State. He kind of initiated this whole thing. And as I said, it's now become the permanent summer home for New York City Ballet. And yeah, so just going off of that, what I found to be really interesting about COVID this year is it has very, very strict protocols. So again, they're going by the state mandates and what the CDC is saying. It is very, very strict. So you have to show proof of your vaccination status. If you have it, you have to get a negative COVID test 72 hours before the event, or FDA antigen test 6 hours before the start time of the show. And there will be health screenings and temperature checks at the beginning of the time that you're there at the site. There's also touchless ticketing, hand sanitizer on the grounds, very, very strict protocols as far as where you can sit. You can have like a pod of people that you can register to get tickets with, but then that's also separated. It's not like you can be close to someone to maintain the social distancing rules. Even if you are vaccinated, they're saying that you need to wear your mask the whole time. And the staff is going through rigorous training to enhance the safety for all. So it's very, very strict. And although it is outside, they are really enhancing what the CDC in the state is asking for. So I just found that to be really unique and different to Vail Valley, which is like nothing, Right. So
that's all very interesting. Now I'm curious, Hannah, about SPAC. So I've driven past it when I've been in Saratoga Springs, but I've never attended a performance before. So I'm trying to recall, they do have a covered stage, right? There's like a covering over top. Is that correct?
Yeah, they do. They have a roof almost. Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure if this came up in your research as well, but I'm pretty sure from just seeing like photos and videos, because I follow Vail's Instagram, that they also have a covered stage, I believe. Do you know if that's correct?
I think that is true as well. Yeah. So this certainly helps with some of the things you were talking about really like early on with just the sun and just different factors and protecting the dancers in the stage.
Yeah.
So
I just think that's interesting. And we didn't plan this, of course, but So both of those stages are covered, whereas like Jacob's Pillow and Kotzbahn that I looked into, those are both uncovered stages.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of interesting. Like we didn't intend to kind of separate them in that nature, but each place has then their different conditions that they're dealing with because of those different logistics. And then I just was going to dive into one last place that I looked into a little bit, which is the Battery Dance Festival. And this typically occurs outside. It's New York City's longest running free public dance festival, although this year it will all be occurring virtually. So this is honestly all I really found about the Battery Dance Festival, but I did want to just bring it up because once again, it's just another example of how things are being done this year. So like you said, with Fire Island, Hannah, they've decided to just postpone and have the festival again starting in 2022, whereas the Battery Dance Festival decided to put together something this year, but instead of trying to do it in person, they just decided to go completely virtual. So it's just interesting to see how all of these different companies are handling these unprecedented times, and hopefully by 2022, when we're looking at next summer, hopefully all of these will be back in person again, and that it won't be so much of trying to create a specific plan, I guess, for each place.
Yeah, like maybe they can go back to what was before all this.
Right. And then I also reached out to our lovely friend, Sarah Gregory, because I know that she has done a lot of different outdoor performances this year. I think as many of our friends actually have in their different programs, different seasons, company work. So she is currently an apprentice with the Montgomery Ballet, and she told me a little bit about a few of her experiences this year. So I just want to point out too, so like I said, she's with Montgomery Ballet, so she's in Alabama, so they do have the luxury of being like hot, warm outside for a longer period of the year than those of us up north. So that definitely, I think, helped them this year with being able to do more outdoor performances. So she told me that when the company performed at the zoo back in November, so once again, like I said, up north here, performing in November wouldn't be super ideal with the weather, but they're able to do so down there. They ended up having to do the performance on flat because it got a lot cooler out at night, and that created condensation on the stage from the changes in the temperature. And she described it as it feeling kind of like dancing on water a little bit. And normally the show at the zoo happens in September when it's hotter, so this was really a first for the company. And I think this was just interesting because that was something I didn't originally think about when discussing conditions, but having to make that adaptation for ballet dancers specifically of dancing on point to then going on flat. And they had Marley stage, but it just wasn't really great, like I said, with that buildup of condensation. They also had the school's recital outdoors, and she said that a giant rainstorm barreled in just minutes after the show when they were striking. So this was a fortunate event, the fact that they were able to get through the show without, getting drenched in rain, but they still ended up getting soaked in the end. And I don't know, these were just all kind of things that struck me because I think as a director or whomever is in kind of the position to make these calls for these different dance companies or for these different festivals, that you need to have kind of action plans for, what if this happens? What if that happens? So in that instance where the school had their recital outside, had it started raining 10-15 minutes earlier and there were children on stage and it's downpouring, what would they have done? So I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if they have the answer to that, but I think when entering the realm of outdoor performing, there's a lot more that needs to be thought about upfront.
Yeah, taken into account.
Performance. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of planning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't really understand how much planning, I think, goes into each and every one, because it is such an individual experience for each festival.
Yeah. And I think too, it's just like a learning curve as well. So, I mean, you're not gonna know everything. You can't always be prepared for every single situation that might arise. So I think a lot of these different companies and stuff, like they just have to, unfortunately, learn as they go, I suppose,
Yep, and sometimes that's all you can do in these situations. Just do your
Right,
best and see what happens, and then you learn from the experience.
right. All right. Do you have anything else you want to add about all of this?
No, not really. I just think it's really special to have these outdoor settings, especially during this COVID time. And it just makes everything that more memorable when you can still have dance and art portrayed in and on a stage, or like, a festival is still happening, even though we've had so much that has gone on this past year. I think it gives a lot of people something to look forward to, and because a lot of these places are outside, you can get together more safely. Like, that's just the fact of the matter. So I'm going to repeat myself again, but if those of you listening can support the arts in any way and take advantage of these opportunities, please do so, because it is something that is needed right now.
Hannah's turning into a spokesperson if you haven't figured this out already.
Yeah. Support the arts, please.
Yeah, so to wrap things up today, we actually have some news to share with you all. So Hannah and I have decided we are going to take about a month break since we've hit this big milestone of 15 episodes spanning 30 weeks. And we really thank you all for supporting us thus far. It's been incredible. Thank you for all of you who have reached out to us. And I just want to bring this little statistic to light that we have currently listeners from 9 different countries around the world, which that number has grown quite a bit since the beginning and in more recently the last couple months. And it's really amazing to have that level of support, even if it's only 1 or 2 listeners from around the world in each country. It's still amazing. So thank you for all of that. And as we take our break, we are going to be launching a Instagram account. You can follow us at abundance_podcast on Instagram. And abundance is not in parentheses because Instagram doesn't allow for that. So just similarly to our email, it's again abundance_podcast. And this is an opportunity for us to continue to connect with you and for you to follow what we're doing while we take our little hiatus. And then it'll also just be another way of connecting when we start back up again. So you can expect to hear back from us around August when we will be beginning a interview series.
And we're really excited about that because we already have some interviews lined up.
Yes, it'll be really exciting. Those are a surprise, so we can't tell you who you'll be hearing from, but you have that to look forward to.
Yeah, and as Kristen said, just thank you so much for the support. This is so fun for us to do.
Yes, stay well, and I suppose this is an opportunity if you've fallen behind and you maybe missed a couple episodes in the past, give them a listen.
Yes, please do. They're right there for you.
All right, friends. Thank you so much again. You'll be hearing from us soon. And follow our Instagram.
Yes. See you in August.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning into Abundance. We appreciate your support. We hope to have PK'd your interest. Feel free to contact us at abundancepodcast5678@gmail.com and give us feedback on what you'd like to hear. That is abundance without parentheses. Go dance yourself silly. Bye for now.
A special thank you to Richard DiFiore for our lovely podcast tune and Matt Mellish for our cover art.